We've been on an incredible journey for a while together. We've been talking about change. We've been talking about transformation. We talked about the importance of the dynamic duo, faith and action both being really strong in our lives. We've talked about the power of the Spirit to transform us from the inside out and how we need to apply what we learn immediately. Of AKI, applying knowledge immediately, is so important. We talked about how to form habits like dominoes that get bigger and bigger, and the momentum of one habit leads to the next habit. We talked about 4 modes of living that gives a picture of what the good and blessed life that God brings us toward actually looks like in different categories of life. We talked about activating our bodies, using our bodies as instruments of worship, transforming our mind, changing thoughts, pulling weeds, creating the 3 beautiful mindsets of gratitude, growth, and generosity. We talked about awakening our heart, bearing the 4 golden fruits, directing our emotions in healthy ways. And we're coming now to the last part, which is about planning. It might seem anticlimactic talking about planning, how to plan your day, how to plan your life, how to plan your legacy. Well, that doesn't seem all that important, but it actually is where all these things culminate and come together. If you want to develop a change in your health and you try to put habits in place, but you fail to plan those habits on a day-to-day basis, those transformations will not stick. If a change or transformation is going to show up, it needs to show up in our daily life. Keyword day. It has to show up every day in our life. Because remember, we're not going after small, short-term changes. We're going after lifestyle changes. We want to be more loving toward God and people for the rest of our life. There's not a time when we want that to stop. We want to have more joy coming inside of us, flowing outside of us, more peace, more passion in the work that we get to do to help other people. We want to have gratitude every day. These things are not short-term changes, so we want them to show up every day of our life, which is why we're drilling down now into incredible detail for planning. Listen to Proverbs 21. This is such a key verse. Proverbs 21:5 says, "Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity." Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. That sounds like blessing mode, doesn't it? Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, abundance, the ability to be blessed, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. That sounds like a slaving and a surviving mode, doesn't it? Not only good planning, but the ability to act on those plans and follow through leads to that blessing mode. Have you ever known someone who lived in that blessing mode? They were incredibly generous. Their life was productive. My guess is those people did not accidentally stumble into that way of living. They were intentional about it. They had some level of forethought, prayerful planning that led them in that direction of life. On the other hand, have you ever known somebody who just did not plan ahead? They could not, or they refused to, or they didn't see themselves as a planner. They identified themselves as a whimsical person, or I live by the seat of my pants, or I'm spontaneous, which are all great qualities, but they didn't plan. And what ends up happening in something like that? They can tend to be really hurried and really busy and really exhausted because they've overspent their resources. And now they're just trying to catch up. Or they can make promises and not keep them, and it ends up hurting relationships. Or they can show up to places late and let people down because they didn't plan ahead how to execute the things they needed to do. Or they had a lot of responsibility, but some of the unwise decision making and lack of long-term thinking put them in detriment, and the responsibilities that they had were taken away from them, and they ended up having less and less. Those are some of the important directions that planning or lack of planning can lead us. When I was in a basketball camp as a kid, one of the things the coach taught us is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Planning ahead is so important. So here's what I'd like to do with you. This is going to be a very interactive time together. It won't be useful it won't be very useful if you don't participate in what we're doing. So I'm going to ask some interaction. It'd be helpful if you get a piece of paper and something to write with or a device to write on. And what we're going to do first is talk about how to plan one of the two really important resources we're addressing today, and that's money. And then we're going to talk about how to plan time. Now, wherever you are in your relationship with money, there might be something valuable for you in this talk. If you have a ton of money, so much you don't know what to do with, that's wonderful. Let's plan it and let's organize it in a godly way. If you don't have enough and you're just trying to scrape by or in debt or trying to get above water, this will be helpful for you as well, or anywhere in the middle. And some of it you might already know and be really doing well at. Others might want some adjustment. So let's talk about this in a way that might be slightly new for those of you who use a budget regularly. What I'd like to invite you to do is, on your piece of paper, list your priorities in life in order. So go ahead and pause the video and list priorities. Number 1, number 2, number 3. In other words, what's most important to you in life? It can be people, places, things, events, whatever you want. List them in order. Okay, now let's look through our list of priorities. And I hope by now, as we've been in this journey together, that God is at the top of the list. He's at the top of the list for me. So I hope that's true for you as well. And if not, I hope that you can put him to the top of the list, because he's the most important thing in our lives. And once we have our priorities in order, hopefully family is like next or close behind, our loved ones, the most important people in our life, and then friends and other things, so on and so on and so on. You probably wouldn't put, my most important priority is impressing people that don't really care about me, or my most important priority in life is just coping and living a mediocre life. We wouldn't say that. It probably looks something like God, family, friends, health somewhere in there, work, contribution to the world, people that I care about, or some interest that I have. So those are our priorities. When those are really clear, then planning becomes much easier. So once our priorities are in line, then what I'd like for you to do is write down your income. Write down your monthly income. If you're not sure what it is, you can rough estimate monthly income. And you can use round numbers if that helps. If this is part of the challenge, that there's not enough income, then this might be one of the growth areas. Okay, how can I bring more income? We can be wise with our money, but if there's not enough coming in to meet the basics, then that's one of the questions. How do I earn more income? Maybe I need to move from a wages, tips, hourly. Maybe I need to find a salary position or get more hours to earn more money. Maybe I need to do some commission-based work or start a business or do a side job. Maybe I need to look into some other ways to build up toward investing. So once we have our income, then I would like us to list our investments. Where is this money gonna go? So to be really simple and use dumb round numbers, let's say you make $100 a month. I know that's not realistic. Let's say you make $100 a month. It makes it easy. Now, where is that $100 a month gonna go? Where are the investments? You might say, wait a minute, aren't those expenses? We could call them expenses, but let's call them investments, because everything you're putting your money into is based on your priorities. And those priorities are the most important things in your life. So when you put your money into those things, that's an investment in something that you really care about and that's important to God. Expenses is just losing money. Investments is putting into something that's really meaningful. So let's think of all the places we put our money as investments. Some of them are investments that have financial return. Some of them are investments that have relational return or spiritual return or eternal ROI. So list your investments. It probably looks something like housing, shelter, food, utilities, maybe phone bill, gas, travel expenses, clothing or shopping. And once you've listed where you're investing your money, now we get some opportunity to make some adjustments. Is there anything on this list that you immediately just say, this does not line up with what I said my priorities are? This just doesn't line up. I'm just going to strike this off. This is not an investment. This is just a waste of money. I don't want to do this anymore. Okay? All right, are there any things that you say, well, this is actually, I say this is a high priority, but it's a low investment. I need to switch it and make it a higher investment in my life. We can make some great adjustments here. Now, next to your investments, write the dollar amount that you put into those investments each month. So if it's housing and you make $100 a month, maybe housing is $25 a month to put into housing. Utilities, $8 a month. Food, $15 a month. Go ahead and write those down. Once you have all the investments and the dollar amounts beside them, here's where I want to challenge you a little bit, because our priorities guide our life and our planning. If our priorities are just as much pleasure as I can get in a given day, that's going to be a pretty disappointing plan in the long run. But if our priorities are God and our loved ones and our health and meaningful work and serving other people, if our priorities are in line with what God wants for us, that is a path to joy and a path of love and a path of serving and a path of some really good ROI down the line, return on investments. So here's some recommendations I want to offer you in terms of your money and planning of what you go investing to. The first is, and this is the case in our family, the first investment we make is into God's kingdom through the local church. So we take 10% of what we earn, it's called a tithe, and that immediately goes to giving to our local church. That is an incredible investment with spiritual and relational returns that makes a difference in ways that you'll never fully be able to see and calculate. But it's a great investment. So if giving and tithing is not a part of the top tier, if you would say God's a top priority, but giving to God's work through the local church doesn't show up, I would challenge you to move it up toward matching your priorities. Another priority would be family, and here's where a lot of expenses come in. Whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you have kids, whether you have family living with you, family shows up as a high priority, including taking care of yourself. So that's where food, shelter, utilities, all these things come in. And then we also have some things that invest in relationships that are just fun money that, we want to do something fun, or we want to invest in some cool experiences or take a vacation. Hopefully fun money is a part of your list, because if it's not, you'll end up spending it anyway. You'll probably overspend somewhere. So I like to just take a certain amount each month and say, this is going to be spent on a little bit of going out to eat, or the unexpected gift, or something fun, or something comes up we want to do, and that gives some margin for it. And I would also encourage you to think in terms of another category in there. It says generous giving. Budget, set aside some money each month. Maybe it's, if you earn $100, maybe it's just 10 cents a month. It's a very small amount if that's all that seems reasonable. But when a need comes up, or when I can contribute to something unexpectedly that I wasn't planning for, boy, I've got a little money to draw from, and I can just give it, and I know it's been earmarked for that. It's very, very exciting to be able to give generously. Connecting the generous mindset to a planning budget becomes a very powerful mode of being able to bless other people. Now, once you've aligned your income with the investments, the priorities of your life that you're investing in, then you just need to develop some kind of system to make sure that keeps happening. Okay, I'm every month, things are going where I said they'd go. I put those dollars into the right investments that matter, and I review it. I look at it. Maybe I check in once a week or do my budget once a month, make sure I'm on track. Oops, this was really off. What happened? That's okay. If we get really off, mistakes are going to happen. We have a growth mindset. So we're going to look at that and say, what can I learn from this? How can I do it a little bit differently next month? And then next month, I'll do the same. I'll look at it, I'll review. I say, man, this was great. This was great. Ooh, this was a disaster. Why did I spend $1 million on coffee when I didn't say that was a priority? Okay, I can make some adjustments based on my priorities for next month. Great. Now, that is a very simple way of planning ahead for money on the short term. Whatever money God is blessing you with, it's a gift. It's wonderful. He wants you to enjoy it. He wants you to enjoy your life. He doesn't want you to live for it, but he doesn't also want you to do without it because it's an important part of life. He wants to bless you generously, and you can be a blessing to other people generously. So let's plan those things ahead. And you can also take that simple concept and stretch that out for a lifetime. Okay, what are some of the bigger goals? Not just the monthly investments, but some of the bigger goals in our life. What kind of dollars do we need to put toward that plan? Now, that was talking about money, but really, it was mostly just to give us an example to talk about time. So I'd like to do the exact same process with you on one of the most incredible resources that you have that sometimes gets the least bit of planning, and that is our time. So go back to the place where you listed your priorities in life, okay? Once those are good, then we're gonna do the exact same thing and say, okay, how am I investing my time in alignment with these priorities? Because if I say my kids are one of my top priorities, but I don't actually give them quality time, I'm fooling myself. I'm absolutely fooling myself. Just like if I said, well, investing into the stock market is one of my top priorities in life, but I only put $1 a month in, it's really not a priority, is it? No. Well, investing in my relationship with God is a top priority in my life. Does that show up in my calendar? Do I spend any time doing things that nurture that relationship with God? No. Well, something's off balance. I want to align those things so that it brings me in the direction of change. So when we talk about time investments, we want to think about that the same way as we think about dollar investments. It's not an expense. We don't spend time. Let's stop thinking like that. That's just a negative way of thinking about it. Time is not money. We don't spend it. We don't waste it. Time is a gift, and we want to invest it because we invest into things that matter. We invest into things that we care about. We invest in things that have a relational return or an opportunity to serve other people or spiritual fruitfulness to them. So there are two tools we want to talk about primarily when we talk about investing our time. One is a list, and the second one is the calendar. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with both. A list tells us what we want to do. We make a list. So I have 10 things. I can't remember them all. I'm going to make a list. These are the things I'm going to do. This is the what. A calendar tells us when. This is, I'm going to do this on Monday. I'm going to do this on Tuesday. I'm going to do this Wednesday morning, this Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so just very simple tools. A list tells us what, and a calendar tells us when. So let's take a moment and really drill down into the weekly investments that we make. So I'd like you to list on a piece of paper, list everything that you do in a week. Okay, and then when you're done listing it, put how long it takes to do it. Okay? Everything you do in a normal week. Sometimes it's easier to do a week than a day because not all the tasks are the same. So for example, sleeping, X number of hours. Eating and preparing meals, X number of hours. Self-care like showering, brushing my teeth, exercise, pray, read, X number of hours a week. Sabbath day, hopefully is on there. That's a whole day, taking a day of rest. Like a real resting, renewing, spiritually renewing day. Caring for family members, whether it's kids, parents, other family members with extra needs. Job, X amount of hours a week. school, X amount of hours a week, house chores, hobbies, yada yada. So go ahead and pause the video, list all the things you do in a normal week, hourly amount, and then we'll come back. Okay, just like with the money, this is where it gets fun because we're actually seeing what we're investing our time into. And hopefully you put realistic time frames, not rushed time frames. We don't want to live in a rushed, hurried mode, because then we're never just fully present. We're never at peace. We're always rushing. So put realistic, like peaceful amounts of time frames on those things. And now we can stack up this list with our priorities. Okay, I said my priorities are this. This is the way I'm living. What changes do I want to make? I've got a list. I see how many hours a week I have. Now, when am I fitting this into the calendar? We take the list of what we're going to do and we actually stack it up in a day and a week calendar. And we can get amazing clarity on our schedule just by doing this with a fine-tooth comb. Okay, well, I said it takes about 3 or 4 hours a week for house chores. When am I actually doing this in the week? Oh, I don't have a place for it. It always gets smushed out of the margins, so I'm always trying to fit it in somewhere that I don't have time for. That's the problem. Oh, what? Wow. Man, I said that my work is 40 hours a week, but if I actually look at it, I'm doing 45 and I'm just doing extra and extra and extra. That's really not helping anybody. It's not necessary. It's just, I feel like I have to keep going and going and going. So I could cut 5 hours off and nothing worse would happen. Or maybe it's family time. Like I want to spend time with my kids, but I don't have a place in the day where there's any margin for that. I haven't prioritized that on the calendar. It's a priority on my list. It's a priority in my life, but hasn't found a priority on my calendar. Gotta fix that. Same thing with God. Wow, how much time do I spend in things that nurture my relationship with God? I don't really have that in my calendar. See where we're going here? So we want to align our priorities with our time investments and put those on the calendar, not theoretically, but really specifically and really simply. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. In a normal day, in a normal week. Do we ever have a normal week? Sometimes, but things always happen that throw off the normal week, right? Things always happen, but this is the norm. This is where we go back to. This is our default, so that we could vary a little bit here and there, but we're coming back to these priorities as a regular rhythm. This is life-changing adjustments and alterations, guys. Life-changing adjustments and alterations. I want to give you an example of a normal day for me, how I've arranged those priorities. And as I share this, I'm not sharing it because I think you should do this. You shouldn't copy my schedule. You shouldn't try to stack up your life and make it just like mine. And I also would invite you to just be gracious with me. If you're way ahead of me on some of these areas, you don't need to step backwards or make judgmental comments or whatever. This is just an example of the iteration of my schedule as it is right now. It evolves over different seasons, but here's what it looks like right now to implement priorities on a normal weekday for me. Usually get up at 5:30, take a moment to just connect with my wife, maybe hold her hand or just put my hand on her shoulder, tell her I love her for a minute before I get up and go to the bathroom, spend about 20 minutes in prayer and meditation, then 30 minutes exercising. Then I get a shower, get dressed, brush my teeth, start drinking a lot of water. That's my breakfast, is a lot of water, and then drink a lot of water throughout the day and prepare food for the whole day. So I'll prepare what I'm going to eat that day and set it out and arrange it so that I kind of know what lunch will look like, what snack will look like, and what dinner will look like. And then at 7:30, we have a family huddle. We call it a family fireside before everybody goes off to their day in school and work. And we just check in for about 5 minutes. Okay, what are you doing today? What are you doing today? Okay, great. Make sure we're all on the same page. We know the flow of the day. We hit any snags before they hit us. And then just either pray for each other or give each other an encouragement or listen to a quick song. And then we send each other, bless each other out into the day. until we reconverse that night. Then in the morning from about 8 to noon is message prep for me. That's a really high priority because it's one of the contributions I get to make to a lot of people. So I make it a top priority, making sure there's a break in between somewhere in that 4-hour stretch. And then lunch is my first meal of the day. Usually eat fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or an egg and cheese sandwich or something like that. And then the afternoon is a time for me for meetings and projects. So that's when I'll schedule meetings or have appointments or work on extended projects that aren't message prep. Also budgeting in a break in there, as well as an afternoon snack, which is usually something like nuts and some dark chocolate or an apple or something like that. And then I'm home by 5:30 for dinner. That's our family dinner time where we reconverge around the table. We say a prayer, we check in with each other, we just hang out together. And usually dinner, my wife makes something amazing, pasta or stir fry or cooked vegetables, fresh fruits, something grain, something warm, cooked, delicious, super healthy. And she's great at that. And then as a family, we make dish assignments. Who's cleaning up the dishes, who's cleaning up the house, and we just kind of tidy up the whole house. Which doesn't take that long, but it puts things in a good place for the evening. And then in the evenings, a couple nights a week are usually work nights for me or my wife, and the other nights are time to spend with the family, play games, watch a movie, take a walk, read, have some quiet time, personal time, listen to some music, or do a hobby and enjoy life. That's what an iteration of a weekday looks like for me in this season of life, and it is taking a constant tinkering adjustments to get to a place where those priorities really show up. We also have some weekly points in the contact, in the rhythm, like family night, that if everything else is not happening, like we still converge for a family night with these certain rituals once a week. And the Sabbath day, still try to keep that a priority most weeks. And obviously worshiping on Sunday morning with the church is an important one for us. So I'd encourage you to take some time and maneuver that list of investments, where your time is actually going, into your week and make it realistic. And then every week have a little bit of a system where you just reflect and make some adjustments. Okay, well, that was crazy. What do we do next week to bring that into peacefulness? Or, wow, I was exhausted. I did way too much. How did I get to that point? Let's reflect and do it a little bit differently next week. That process alone will be life-changing in just a short number of weeks.